And we're ready, Mr. Chair.
All right, good morning. Welcome to the Design Review Board meeting on this June 16th, 2023. Maria, could you do a roll call for us?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Miss Anthony,
Present.
Miss Bright,
She's muted, but I see her present.
Present. Sorry.
Miss Dickinson,
Present.
Miss Clement,
Present.
Mr. Kapler,
Present.
Miss Shaw,
Present.
and Mr. Stevie.
I'm here.
Excellent. We have quorum, Mr. Chair.
We have 100% attendance by the Design Review Board this morning. Way to go, everybody. All right, second agenda item, review and approve the 5/19 meeting minutes. We would need a motion and a vote to approve those minutes from 5/19. I missed that meeting, but I will still vote support the motion if there is one.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Paige. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Yeah.
Carol has seconded the motion. I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed to approving these minutes? Say nay. Nobody opposes. The motion has passed. All right. Now on to number 3 on our agenda, which is a call to the audience. Is there an audience that would like to introduce themselves, someone not connected to an application, staff, or DRB? Is there anyone in the audience position right now? All right. We always like to check and give the audience a chance to introduce themselves. Moving on, number 4 is our first application and our first case. It's activity SD 0423-00044, Downtown Event Center. And I think the first thing we should do is get a staff recap or overview of the application, and then there'll be time for the applicant to present specifics to the DRB. So staff, could you give us a recap?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the DRB. This is the existing building. It's right next to the Gibson's supermarket in downtown on 6th Avenue. The last use that we have on record for this site was for an art school, and it has remained vacant for a while now. So the applicant is proposing to come in with a new land use. It would be an event center under the UDC that's called a civic assembly. So as part of their proposal, they're gonna be making modifications to the facade on the west side. This case was reviewed by the PRS, the Historic Plan Review Subcommittee, 2 weeks ago or so, May 25th, and they recommended approval to the PDSC director as presented by the applicant, with the condition that if any changes were to be done in the future, even as a result from DRB review, that they would need to go back to PRS for a second round. This is a Rio Nuevo area review. I believe everybody knows the drill by now. So if you don't have any questions for me, the applicant is available here for a presentation.
Muted.
Real quick, before we do the applicant's presentation, let's put on the screen attachment A, which is our purview criteria. And we can get warmed up with what that is. It's the building design standards, and then there's also some site standards, which, oh, there's attachment A, and site standards, and parking, and shade. So that's our criteria, just to refresh the DRB's memory and keep it fresh in mind. And with that, I think we can have the applicant present their application.
All right, we'll go ahead and share our screen here. All right, can everyone see that?
Yes.
All right, so we'll start. So my name is Dan Macker. I'm the Director of Architecture here at GLHN Architects and Engineers. With me,
And I'm Sasha Kessler. I'm an architectural job captain here at GLHN Architects and Engineers.
so to give the brief rundown of the project, this is at 33 South 6th Avenue. As heard before, it is next to Johnny Gibson's Market on 6th. The renovations to the west facade are going to be relatively minor. The main purpose of those renovations is to increase energy efficiency through modern glazing, and then restore, I want to say restore, but to uncover, we'll say, the historic west facade. So we'll be removing some corrugated steel paneling that has been put up there over the years, and a couple other items, and revealing the brickwork underneath. And then in addition to that, there will be a new security gate that is put in the existing alcove, basically to try to cut down on people sleeping in the alcove and other things, which has been a problem for this particular facility. So these are the views there. You can see in the center with the kind of white corrugated facade up top. That's part of what will be removed. And then the screening that is over the glazing will be removed as well to expose the glass. This is the existing tile work that is on the lower part of the west facade. That is going to be that will remain in place. These are the corrugated metal elements that will be removed. And then this is just a couple images of what it looks like from the inside of. Oop, a little fast there. So this is the existing glazing that will be removed and replaced with a clear anodized storefront system. It's going to be something like solar band 60 or 70. We will keep the tint as minimal as possible to maintain the design intent of the historical facade. This alcove will be maintained. Nothing ends up getting modified other than those two existing doors, which are in such bad shape that they can't be salvaged. So those will be replaced. This is another interior view, and then looking into the space itself right now. All of the tile work will remain in place, and this is the south side looking out. Again, location. Everyone's pretty familiar with it at this point. So this building was originally part of a larger kind of automotive complex in this area. So this was originally named the Roberts Reynolds Garage, and it's served a number of functions over the years. And as before, it was most recently the drawing studio, and it has been vacant for a number of years now. Okay, we can roll through that. So in our drawings, just showing the extent of the removal, again, just replacing the glazing all along the west facade and into that alcove area, the two entry doors, and then putting the security gate at a location that does still provide the shadow lines of that alcove, but doesn't allow kind of full entry into the alcove, because, as I said before, they have had issues with drug use, people sleeping in there, things like that in that alcove. There's actually currently a wood framed wall and a residential door that is set there to keep people out. But as we'll see as we move through, we have designed just a security gate there that somewhat replicates the existing kind of massing of that overall facade element up top. So in addition to that, the existing stucco will be painted. This is the existing drawing. The colors were from a pre-approved complementary color set with the overall kind of feelings of the downtown area, not looking to deviate too much from a historic perspective, muted tones overall, and just kind of restoring what was there originally. These are details for that gate. As you can see, it's just a tube steel gate with perforated metal panels. So there will still be some transparency there into the interior. Not looking to look overly prison-like or anything like that. Trying to keep it kind of light and inviting. So from a shading perspective, we are not proposing to add any additional awning elements on this west facade. Historically, there has not been a fixed awning or shade element on that sidewalk area. Because this is a building that has been listed, we are proposing to not add one. It's obviously in the Rio Nuevo overlay district, but you know, we felt that it was important to maintain the character of the historic building. And finally, this is an image, the only image that we were able to find actually in going to the Historical Society. What year is this from? Do you recall?
It's roughly 1925, 1926. Okay.
Yeah, so this was when it was the Roberts Reynolds Garage, so 1925, 1926. Obviously, there have been some changes over the years. That alcove is newer than this building itself, but this was the only historic photo that we were able to find.
Yeah, I did find in the research that the renovation that gave the Art Deco facade was in 1940.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's,
right.
Yeah.
So any questions that we can answer?
And Mr. Chair, members of the DRB, just to let you know, our Historic Preservation Officer, Jody Brown, is here also, in case there's any questions for her.
Great. Great. Okay. DRB, are there any questions on the presentation that you'd like to back up a page and put a detail on the screen before we go to our purview?
Did we look at the elevations again?
Yeah.
But it's gonna be slow. Rosemary, would you like to see the new elevation or the existing?
Let's take a look at the proposed.
So you're filling in that alcove with that gate.
Correct, but that gate will fold back on itself. There's actually there's two leaves on either side, so it will fold completely back in on itself. So when during operating hours, it would be pushed away.
Gotcha.
Could you zoom in a little bit?
Oh, okay, hang on. This might have to be.
That's better, things.
Oh, sorry about that. And that might be too far.
So you might have discussed this and I glazed over, but the colors, are they original to the building or are they just proposed based on color scheme in the area?
Yeah, so those are proposed based off of the color scheme in the area. And there was a series of complementary schemes that were provided to us early in the design process. And this was the one that ended up being selected.
Okay, great. I think it looks really
That was
nice.
a-
I just wanted to make sure.
And as I recall, that was based off of, so this building, because it's been vacant for quite some time, has gone through several other processes, but never been occupied by a different tenant. And so I believe that those pre-approved color palettes had come from a previous exercise, and that was how we ended up with them.
Is the color palette reviewed and approved by the Historic Plans Review Committee? That's part of their purview, is the colors?
Yeah, and that was the process that we went through a couple weeks ago. They saw all these color renderings and things like that, and they voted to approve. As long as the one thing that was outstanding at that point was we were still trying to do an investigation to see if we could salvage those doors that were in the alcove, which obviously aren't original to the building, but they are old. And so we discussed that with them. We would probably update to say that we are replacing those doors, but they were fine with it when we went through that process. But the colors have been reviewed and approved.
Okay. Back to you, Rosemary.
Yeah, thanks. I think that answers my questions, and it looks like Carol has her hand up.
Carol.
Yeah, the turquoise tile, is that existing or is that new?
That is existing.
And it's in good shape? It's not all broken?
It is our understanding that it is in relatively good shape. Yeah, there would need to be some tile restoration, probably with the grout and things like that, but we do have a photo of it.
Oh, okay. There it is.
Looks like it's in great shape.
Yeah.
I'm glad Carol's bringing that up, because in street view, it looks like there's some tile missing. I'm wondering if that missing tile has been recovered.
I think that there was some that had fallen off.
Yeah, you can see it in the upper image right there. Yeah, the page is talking about. So I believe so. And it's the same thing you can see in that corner for the red. So either match to that existing or I believe, so the owner owns of this space owns Johnny Gibson's as well. They own a good chunk of this block, and they have been maintaining the building while it has been unoccupied. I think that we can discuss that further with them in terms of replacing it.
That's going to be a hard match if you have to match it.
It's a pretty vibrant orange there.
Is the blue tile considered historic because it does bear, I guess, the drawing studio's logo, so it can't be that historic?
Yeah. No, because I don't recall when the drawing studio occupied that space, but
It was around 2010,
yeah,
2011.
so less than 15 years it's been there.
Well, and there's no need to replace their signage, like it's not the drawing studio anymore.
Yeah, we had discussed that with the tenant, and they didn't seem fussed about it, so they requested to keep it in place.
Go ahead. Who's speaking? Carol?
Yeah, I just have another question regarding the gate, but if you want to discuss this further.
Oh, well, hang on. Let me explore this tile. If they wanted to, would they be able to replace that tile because it's not historic in terms of sheer age?
Yuri, can you kick in?
Yeah, if they wanted to replace that tile, they could. It's not historic. It's not original to the building. So if they wanted to replace it, they would just have to come back through the review process to be able to do that. And we had discussed that, I think, initially when we met about keeping versus removing that tile, and it's not a big deal.
Great. Okay. Carol, continue.
Yes, my question is regarding the new gate. It is tubular. The gate is made of tubular steel or just a corrugated sheet?
So the frame is square tube steel to provide the structure. And then there will be corrugated sheet over top of that to provide that transparency and to prevent people from being able to put their hands through and push on the panics and things like that, because that is part of the egress path.
Okay, is the sheet metal part of the gate, is it perforated?
It is perforated, yes.
And what is, and circle perfs or?
Yes, circle perf with 1/8 inch holes.
And where did you get that idea from? It's not historic, it's just for aesthetic reasons?
Correct. Aesthetic and security reasons.
Isn't that very similar to the perforated panels that are currently covering the windows that you're taking off?
That's correct. Yeah, the ones that are being removed, I think, are 16th inch holes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be very similar.
It's a little touch to all of us downtowners that have seen those panels for the last 15 years.
Yeah.
And it looks like the profile you chose also emulates that Art Deco style too, which is nice.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And I like that the gate folds back on itself.
Yeah. And can we look at that plan? That'll help them understand it a little bit better. Yeah, so if you look at drawing 7 there, when they are in operation, basically that gate will fold back on itself, so that it's completely tucked out of the way from the street view. You obviously see it from inside the facility, but we really wanted to maintain the sight lines into that alcove.
Nice.
I appreciate that you're painting that metal instead of letting it be weathered steel like everything else downtown these days.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about the shade. I know there's the shade study, and the proposal is to not add shade to the building, but I'm wondering about the planters in front of the building. There's currently 2 tree planters in front, and they have some very butchered desert willow in them.
Mm.
And I'm wondering if there is any thought around that in providing shade.
Yeah.
Actually, Paige, not to speak for the applicant, but I think those 2 trees have recently been replaced with new desert willows, and they have some really structured, I'd say they look temporary, but tree, I don't want to call them grates, but tree,
Planter boxes?
like squares around the whole tree, so protection of the tree.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, I can't be 100% sure if it's them or right in front of Gibson's, but there's 2 trees right in that area that just got replaced in the last recent past.
Is the applicant intending to keep those trees? Who takes care of those trees? City of Tucson, or is it the property owner?
I believe that it's City of Tucson. Yeah, we are not proposing any modifications to the sidewalk or anything outside of the building envelope. So those trees will remain in place.
In terms of the glazing, I noticed that your windows are clear anodized aluminum. Is that in order to match the historic condition? I was kind of thinking that a dark bronze would look better with your color palette.
Yeah, so now I should say that there is some, if you scroll down there, this is a mix of wood stops, and there is some aluminum glazing in the alcove. So we were just matching that existing clear anodized aluminum. We were mainly concerned about the sight lines of the storefront that would go in there and trying to maintain the narrowest mullions as possible to be complementary to the historic facade. Rosemary, I like dark anodized aluminum, dark bronze anodized aluminum as well, so I won't disagree with you there. But.
Any more questions from the board members? If not, let's go through our purview and see if we can make a recommendation here. All right, thank you, Maria. Building designs has to do with new building. So we're gonna skip number 1, having to do with the scale of buildings. And the setbacks, number 2, we're gonna skip. I think number 3 should be skipped. Number 4 is interesting. I mean, I think they have a minimum 50% of the building. They have windows and displays or visibilities or visible activity within the adjacent to the building to the ground floor level. Number 7, the front doors of all commercial and government buildings shall be visible from the street and visually highlighted by graphics, lighting, marquees, or canopies. They have a deep alcove to their front door. In lieu of a canopy, they have an alcove. And number 8 is relevant, that their modifications to the exterior shall complement the overall historic context. And colors, number 12 applies. Colors may conform to the overall color palette. So I think those are the main points on that list. Any comments or thoughts from the board on that?
I'm okay with all those, Nate.
Yeah, okay. If anyone disagrees, just speak up, but we'll move on to the next page, which has to do with the site standards. Vehicles, they get a pass. There's no vehicles. Parking, pass. Plaza and open spaces. I don't think the plaza and pedestrian nodes applies.
That says new constructions. I think you're right.
Okay, yep, moving on.
Can I ask a question? When the gates are open and you're entering the alcove, will there be any accoutrements to the alcove area, like a seating bench or anything like that?
We hadn't explored that within that alcove space. So yeah, we haven't done anything related to that. So I think that it would be in the owner's best interest to not have that from an egress perspective. But that's part of why we haven't really explored it.
All right. Linkages and streetscape is not applicable, but shade is, and this is probably the big ask here, is they're not going to comply with this 50% shade on June 21st. They've calculated it. The building provides at noon, it provides 15% of the sidewalk in front of it with shade. Not the 425 feet. And the reason is they didn't want to make any attachments to the front facade that wouldn't coordinate with the facade architecture. And it does say that in our purview. Arcades, canopies, shade structures, provided that their design and location are compatible with the prevailing design and context of the streets. They could plant deciduous trees in the right of way if they coordinate with the Department of Transportation, but it sounds like there already are trees there. And maybe those could be added to the calculation. Were they part of your calculation, by
Yeah.
the way?
No, they were not. They were not.
So you can get some extra credit for those trees if you use that if you calculate how much shade they're going to throw off.
As the trees grow on that west elevation, they'll provide some relief, of course.
Can anyone confirm who's responsible for the trees?
I would say, Paige, if they're in the right of way, the city of Tucson owns them. And if they're on the property line, then the property owner maintains them.
It's interesting to me that nobody knows who's really taking care of those trees.
Well, they're in the right of way, so.
Okay.
I think-
Mr. Chair, members of the DRB, I believe DTM, the Department of Transportation and Mobility, is the one responsible, but we can request the applicant to revise that shade study, and I will put them in touch with David Marhevka, the landscape reviewer at DTM, to get the details on the new plantings that Mr. Stevie just let us know about. And then they can refine that shade study.
Could we go back to the elevation on the summer solstice afternoon? Yeah. I mean, I know we designed to noon time, but whew. Okay, is just a thought, nice potted plants that would align with the columns on that facade, just to give some greenery, a little bit of shade. That there would be the responsibility of the owner. What do you guys think of that thought?
Mr. Chair, members of the DRB, that's something that we would need to explore with DTM because of the required minimum width that must be maintained on the sidewalk.
Oh man, look at those existing trees.
This
really
photograph,
Those
this
are called
photograph is
shade
from
trees.
April. Yeah, this photograph is from April 2022.
Those trees are going to shade at least 50% of the sidewalk. I can tell, even without calculating.
Well, I'm really hoping Chris is correct that those have been replaced. The last time I've seen them, they've leafed out quite a bit from that, but you can see they butchered one of the trunks to a stump. But they're desert willows, and they will survive no matter. I think that if the planters are outside of the property, I think that we shouldn't try to include that in this review and possibly or give the shade requirement.
Look, there's a potted plant back in this picture.
Yeah, last year there's a potted plant. You just cannot see it very well because of the pickup.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
But it seems to be the same one as this picture.
I tend to agree with Paige on this. I mean, it's outside of their property and it seems like it would be the city's purview to take care of those.
I don't think maintenance and care of the trees is under our purview, really. It's more if that shade study works or not. And
I think
In
we test.
prior applications that we've dealt with, the shade study is based on a drawing representation or a representation of plant material at 80% of maturity. You know, whether or not it actually gets to that and does the job is not necessarily our purview. It's that this shade study shows that a tree in these two locations would provide shade. I think we're buckling down on whether those trees are pruned or maintained correctly as existing trees, but I don't want to hold this applicant to a different standard than we hold other applicants.
Do we want them to revise their shade study to pump it up as much as possible with those two trees?
I would say it seems a bit pointless.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand that.
Sorry, I would just say I think that would be pointless because it still wouldn't comply and it would just delay things.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, if we're not going to Paige's point, ask them to add planting to the right of way. I don't know that seeing that calculation jumps from 15 to 30 or 40 changes the outcome.
Personally, I anticipate those two trees drawn at close to maturity will give us give them the 50%. I think they should take a shot.
Yeah, I agree, Chris. I agree, because just moving forward as examples with other projects.
I think it would be good. I think I'm falling in line with let's update the shade study and come back for a quick meeting looking at one plan, the shade study, and it will show some improvement from 15%.
Yeah.
If it gets to 50%, great. But at least it demonstrates how we need to comply with these shade studies. I mean, we use everything. Even a stop sign could cast a shadow, and we need the shade. So I could see a motion where we ask them to come back with a shade study for approval.
Yeah, everything
I
else is
agree
in
that
line,
shade
right?
is
It's just this one point, right?
I agree that shade is important. Is there a way we can make the recommendation to update the shade study without requiring them to come back?
I like that idea, like a approved as noted type of review, so they can go forth, they can continue their process. They don't have to come back, but they make the change that we're requesting.
Mr. Kapler, Ms. Pride, members of the DRB, yeah, that's a condition that the DRB, wishes can be placed in your motion. And then staff would be in charge of coordinating with DTM and the applicant
Let's do that.
to revise the shade study.
Maybe that's what we do, Rosemary.
That sounds good.
All right,
Actually,
motion
Nate,
time.
before we move on from shade, I have one kind of point to make that it's mentioned more than once that canopies and awnings have not historically been part of this building. And then the one historic photo that the applicant showed has two major awnings on the building. They're retractable. So I'm confused as to that talking point, or is it
so
that since the 1940 Art Deco facade was installed, there's not been any awnings or retractable awnings?
Our interpretation was a fixed awning as part of a good chunk of the Rio Nuevo design standards. There are those operable awnings that were in that historical photo. But I mean, again, those were removed at a certain point in its historical past. So that was the way that we proceeded with it. But noted related to the confusion on that. So
it seems that the neighboring building has one of those retractable awnings.
I believe that is fixed.
That's fair.
Oh, I was thinking. I'm sorry. I was thinking to the south.
No,
but you're talking about
north.
Susanna. You're talking about to the north.
Yes, with the same owner.
Same owner, but different tenant. Yeah.
Well, now that's a retractable awning. I don't know what, they probably never retract it. I mean, never put it out. Or do they, Chris?
That other image shows it out.
The other image showed it. Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah. Oh,
There they are.
Joe, did you have any comments about awnings?
I mean, if they propose to put in awnings, it's gonna have to go back to PRS. There's a kind of a flat area on the facade where they can install it, so they wouldn't be interrupting anything decorative on that facade. I mean, I don't think it's gonna blow it out of the water as a contributing property if they install awnings on it. It's just a matter of where they place them and it going back for review with the plans review subcommittee.
I have a question, and that's something that, depending on the DRB's motion, could be further explored with DTM. But would the awnings conflict with the trees if extended?
no, it would depend on the width of the awning that they put on.
I had a quick question for Jody. Can you speak to the period of significance and when the awnings were not installed, and also that deco remodel that they mentioned? Was that, I'm assuming, during?
Oh, you're asking me a question that requires research.
Or maybe Sasha knows, sorry.
I mean, I don't know. So when I was going through the historic property inventory form, those awnings were not there when the property was listed, or when that form was filled out back in, I believe, 2011. The Art Deco renovation was around 1940, but that's as much information as I have.
This is, I mean, it's in the Downtown National Register Historic District, which is a relatively new district. They had been working on it for a number of years. So they started back in, like Sasha said, 2011, putting that together, even though it was just listed in 2021. It is significant as the Art Deco, even though it had that modification prior. As you know, changes can achieve their own significance. So there's a lot of buildings throughout downtown actually that have had significant facade changes, and they're still significant. Not to be repetitive with that word.
No, I think that answers my question. Thank you.
well, this is a interesting point. Retractable awnings are right next door. They could be attached to the wall above the opening in a non-intrusive manner, and then they could comply with the shade requirement. So maybe we don't tell them, but we ask them to redo the shade study with 2 trees and or consider the awnings, retractable awnings, to get to that 50%.
Hey, Nate, I wanted to kind of, the point I was making about the trees, if you look at this image, you did a shade study on that. Yeah, they're not going to make it. But Maria, you're in charge of the screen still, right?
Yes.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, there was.
Go back to the one we were just on, like before the images, the street view were on. I think it was 2008 one. Those trees most definitely would meet the shade requirement.
Yeah.
Right. So when we're looking at the shade study, it's a study of a condition that's optimal or a condition that is proposed. So whether or not the trees that they're existing are used in the shade study, I I would be expecting trees more of this size and scale being the ones used in a shade study, in a study, you know, in a
Shade calculation.
yeah, in a shade calculation. So I just wanted to make that point. I wasn't trying to push us into having to do the applicant to do additional work. It was more this shade study, I think, with the trees is going to propel them into that 50% zone. And this is for the board. This is the image I would be thinking would be more applicable to a shade study than these scrawny trees that are out there. Applicant could, through DTM, replace the trees that are there currently. If the ones that in my anecdotal knowledge may have been the ones that were replaced, those may be the ones that are missing currently in front of Johnny Gibson. You know, these properties blend together, but this is more what scale and size of a street tree in the downtown corridor that I would be expecting would be part of a shade study. And then my question about the awnings was really just a question about that they had them or not. I really wasn't trying to push towards awnings, because I don't think this building calls for them aesthetically. Like the style, that Art Deco style is not going to blend so great with retractable awnings. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I do foresee a conflict between tree canopy and awning, as I think Maria mentioned, or someone mentioned.
Okay, so let's come up with some direction here. I think what I'm hearing is come back with a shade study and include trees at 80% maturity that will help you achieve your 50%.
I'm sorry, if that study could be included, the species of the trees and, I don't know, a current photograph of those trees that are planted.
Oh, no, they're not going to give us a photograph of the planted trees because they might change them.
Oh, okay.
I think.
Just don't use Desert Museum Palo Verdes, please.
Okay.
Actually,
Okay.
Paige, I think that's what's there now, and they've been hacked up because they had arms kind of die off. That's what I think is going on in that spot. Jump tree. Nate, I'd be willing to make a motion on this that we pass them through our group, that with the condition that they fulfill the shade study ask that we've been talking about for the next group up, that they just have that as part, that if it meets 50%, they move on. I don't know if I need to wait 2 weeks for them to come back.
Mr. Chair, Mr.
approved,
Stevie, the next DRB meeting is scheduled for July 7th. And it's the only scheduled meeting in July.
Right. So I'm wondering if we're all comfortable with putting the condition on that they, we recommend that they are in compliance as long as they can provide a shade study that shows 50%, you know, with utilizing the trees and other features that are existing within the sidewalk currently as part of that shade study.
I don't know if we can require the 50% though. I mean, what if they're at 45 or 40 and they just can't do any more without adding awnings or some other feature?
It sounds like we don't even, according to Chris's idea, we don't really want to even see the shade study. We just want them to do it. Or are we just going to know that it's understood that those two trees are going to be their best shot? If it's not 50, it's going to be close to 50.
I guess I was just trying to get them through without having to have them wait. If we can't get a quorum on the 7th, that pushes them into August, you know, like that. I feel like this is a street tree situation that may already be just a revised shade study. We've made other applicants come back with just a revised shade study, so I guess that traditionally we would have them come and at least show it to us.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was suggesting a while back, was that we, make the recommendation and pass them on through.
Let's do that. Go ahead, Chris, make your motion and then we'll vote on it. You want to put the motion language on the screen, Maria?
Yeah.
The Cliff Notes? Thank you.
The Cliff Notes. I'll take my Cliff Notes. Go. Pass, say yes. Don't pass, say no. Well, I guess, yeah. Okay, Design Review Board has reviewed the applicant's project for compliance with the Rio Nuevo Aero design criteria and recommendations to the Planning and Development Services Director for approval, finding the project in compliance with the building design standards set forth in UDC section 5.12.7, point C, numbers 1 through 15, and 5.12.7.D. Subject to the following condition, that they provide a shade study showing the required 50% shade provided by elements within the street, including trees, poles, signage, for review at Development Services Director hearing.
Okay. Chris has made his motion. Is there a second to
second.
the?
I'll second
Rosemary
the
has
motion.
seconded it. Thank you, Rosemary. Any final discussion on the motion or the language? Is there going to be a hearing?
No, Mr. Chair, members of the DRB, there's no hearing. It's just, staff presenting to the PDST director everything, recommendations by PRS, recommendations by DRB, and the PDST director making a decision and issuing the decision notice.
Maybe we need to take, if we can't force
can I
it,
make
forcing.
an amendment, Nathan?
Yes, please.
Maria, I'm going to amend the condition. I'm going to amend the condition that the revised shade report be provided as part of the application presented to
Director.
director.
There you go.
Yeah.
That looks good. Any further discussion on the motion that is on the table?
I can't understand it.
I hear Gilbert, but I don't see him.
I don't understand what he's saying.
I think side chatter.
Okay. Let's call for a vote. All in favor of Chris's motion that Rosemary seconded as amended in the condition, say aye or raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
I
Aye.
Any opposed to this motion? It passes unanimously. The motion has passed. Thank you.
Thank you. And Sasha, I'm just going to ask you to include in your revised design package, when you revise the shade study, if you can include a cool historic photo.
Yeah.
So we have it in the record.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Thank you.
Moving on to our next agenda item. It's item number 5. Activity SD 0623000061, Tucson Water Building, 2 new shade canopies on balconies. And we'll start with the staff overview and then go right to the applicant for presentation.
Mr. Chair, members of the DRB, this is the Tucson Water building in downtown, and the applicant is proposing new shade canopies, actually located on the third floor of the building, on both the north and the east facades. And since those canopies are visible from the right of way, it requires a Rio Nuevo area review. The site does not hold any historic resources, so this project didn't need to go through PRS, just the DRB. And the applicant is here for a presentation.
Great, let's turn it over to the applicant.
Great, thank you very much. My name is Dylan Raish. I'll be representing BWS and Tucson Water. So here's our architectural site plan. As you are probably aware, Tucson Water building on North Granada Ave and West Alameda Street. Here is the parcel and address. This is the Rio Nuevo area district boundary, just to the north and the surrounding context. So the parcel area is around 45,000 square feet, building footprint just under 18,000. Our exterior work area is, as mentioned, just on the third floor and covering just 640 square feet of proposed shade balconies. So the existing balconies on the third floor total 1,105 square feet, and the proposed shade canopy would cover about 58% of that. And that is the extent of our exterior work. So here's our aerial photographs to get you guys oriented. So this is the two locations of the third floor shade balconies. There's a second floor shade balcony that we are not adding any shade to. Here are the existing conditions of the site and the photos. We have a key map down here to orient you. Here is the southeast building corner and south building entrance. This is the main entrance off of Alameda Street. So southwest building corner, really the only areas that are visible for these proposed shade canopies are on North Main Ave and Paso Rodeo, so not from Alameda or Granada. Here's the north building elevation and northeast building corner, kind of outlined right here. It's just on the third floor here and in this little alcove on the third floor. Here are the photographs of the surrounding area. We can see the City Hall building and surrounding kind of context of design. Here are the proposed elevations, so the north and east building elevations. North shows 24 feet and 16 feet of shade canopy. And here's a section just to kind of clearly describe the materials of and the structure of the canopy. It's going to be L-angled angles to a C-channel supported by a hollow structural steel column. So these L angles are going to be tilted on their side, and it's about 50% coverage of the proposed shade canopy. So it does let through some light and some water. There are no, it's unconnected. It's a standalone structure, so it does not grab onto the existing building. It's just standalone and supported by the existing slab on the exterior. Here is our precedent examples. So right here on Granada, just south of the Tucson Water building, we have a precedent of these angled iron used for steel on the West Congress building. Here are renderings. So kind of superimposed from the street level. Here is the east shade balcony on the third floor and the central. And here are our bird's eye aerial kind of views of the proposed shade structures. You can see they're standalone structures and painted to match the existing colors used on the Tucson Water building. These colors were selected, Dunn Edwards weathered brown, so it's going to be an exterior painted steel to match the existing steel elements on the proposed balconies. Here's just a kind of overview of the texture of the painted steel. So the color will be the weathered brown. And here are the shade studies. So for the summer solstice, the existing balconies are already kind of covered from the building itself. But for just around lunchtime, it would be nice for the tenants to be able to access this and have a little bit more coverage and be able to utilize this balcony just a little bit more. So did we have any questions?
Nope, I don't have any questions. I think this is gonna help Tucson Water process our water permits even faster when they have this excellent break area.
I would have to agree.
And honestly, I don't think we have purview of shading balconies. It's the right of way that we're trying to shade. I think we're
Correct.
just, I think this is a visual appearance review only.
Yes, that's correct. There's no modifications to the site or ground level or the pedestrian walkway.
So this could be a simple one for our board. I'll open it up for discussion to the board.
No questions here.
I just have one question. So I think it looks cool and it matches existing metalwork around the area, but has there been any thought given to making it 100% shade instead of that banded kind of stripy shade?
There was talk about a metal deck above, but yeah, you know, just for design language and not making it too kind of covered, we were concerned about the views out north to the mountains, and we wanted to have a little bit of opacity for these private offices here and just visual interest. I think the L angles are kind of a cool utilization for shade.
You might have you might have a structural challenge with a closed roof and no walls. And you're not even attaching to the building except for the slab.
That's correct,
This is
yes.
true. This is true. You could put perf or something under it if you wanted additional shade, though.
Yes.
That's all I had.
All right, who's got a motion for us? Maria, could you put the motion language on the screen, please? Thank you.
I can do it if you want. I'm
Thank
just
you,
going
Carol.
as in compliance. The design review board has reviewed the applicant's project for compliance with Rio Nuevo area design criteria and recommends to the Planning and Development Service Director approval, finding the project in compliance with the building design standards set forth in the UDC section 5.12.7.c 1 through 15 and 5.12.7.d. Period. No conditions.
Great. A second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Paige. I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. The motion is passed. And thank you, applicant. Thank you, Dylan. Now we're on number 6, staff announcements. Any announcements, Maria?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, members of the DRB, for those of you who did not attend the last meeting, we received the application, the development package application for the 17-story apartment tower in downtown that the DRB did a courtesy review some time ago at the corner of Congress and the I-10 frontage road. So that's coming in. Also, at the last DRB review, the Chase Bank relocation was reviewed. Chase Bank in downtown at the corner of Congress and Stone is proposing to move across the street to the north. But I was just informed the applicant is withdrawing everything because Chase Bank is in the middle of conversations with the new property owner where their current location is, and they are trying to stay there. So unless we hear differently, it seems like they may stay where they're at. And I believe that's all I have. We had conversations with the architecture firm for the Hotel Arizona this week. They're maybe coming to the DRB. It's going to be a phased project. It's not just the Hotel Arizona, but the entire site, which goes from the corner of Broadway, Granada, to La Placita. So if they do it by stages, they may do the Hotel Arizona renovations first, just going through Rio Nuevo area review. So that may come to your door in the near future. That's all I have for now, Mr. Chair.
All right. We
Hey
are
Maria,
now.
this is Chris. Is that the 17-story tower at Congress and I-10? Is that on potentially for the July 7, or are they looking more in the August timeframe? I think if when that one comes back around, I'd highly encourage this board to have a strong presence at that. I don't think that's one that we want to review with minimum quorum.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Stevie, members of the DRB, we don't expect that to happen in July. They're just going through the first round of development package review comments. They will need to move pretty fast, but if that's the case, yeah, I'm gonna reach out to the DRB and I'll try to make sure that all of you are present. If July 7 doesn't work, the DRB also has the ability to meet another date in July if that's the case.
Yeah, July 7th is awfully close to the 4th of July.
That's correct.
But it doesn't feel like they're on track for that meeting if they're just now starting to talk to you with DP plans.
That's correct. They may request though to move on. So if that's the case, I will reach out to the DRB and try to find a date where all of you can be present.
Because in another life that I have, I've got a glimpse at some revised plans, and they've revised that site plan significantly from what we saw. If what I was looking at was correct, so I'd recommend that we were all there for that meeting.
If I may, I know I'm not going to be available for the August 4th meeting. I'll be out of town.
Do we have anything on the agenda yet for July 7th?
Mr. Chair, Ms. Pride, members of the DRB, no, we don't. But that can change any second.
Yeah. I just want to let you know I will be available for July 7th. I am going to be off grid and out of communication for days before that. So I just want to let you know in advance I will be there in case you don't get an email from me. It's because I can't email.
Thank you.
You gonna be in a dungeon, Paige, like tied to a chair or something?
It looks like I'm in one now, doesn't it? I don't know what's going on with my camera. No, I'm gonna be in a canyon.
Awesome.
So there's no reception. So
Probably the only place you can be July 7 in Arizona. Down somewhere
In a
near
hole?
water.
No, I'll be back at July 7th. It's just end of June. I'll be in a canyon.
Nice.
The canyon?
No, it's northern Utah.
Slot.
It's like and it's just near Idaho. It's just there's no reception up there. It's the middle of nowhere.
Great.
Sounds nice.
It is.
Okay. Any other comments? We can stop recording and we are adjourned.
Thank you so much, everybody. And if I don't see you soon, then have a wonderful holiday.
All right.
Thank
See you,
you.
everyone.
You.
Bye.
Bye bye.